Howdy, howdy, my fellow gamers, and welcome back to another episode of Storytime with Freak. Today we are slowly but steadily making our way through Neal Shusterman's Thunderhead. We will be on Chapter 17, AW.FUL. They spelled it really weird, so that's why I said it like that. I must admit that I am not the only factor maintaining the sustainability of the world. The scythedom is also contributes by its practice of gleaning. Even so, scythes glean only a small percentage of the population. The work of scythes is not to completely curb population growth, but to smooth its edges. That is why, at current quotas, one's chance of being gleaned is only 10% of the next 1,000 years. Low enough to make gleaning the furthest thing from most people's minds. I do foresee a time, however, when population growth will need to reach an equilibrium. Zero growth, one person dying for every person born. The year this will occur is something I do not share with the general population, but is just beyond the horizon. Even with an incremental increase in gleaning quotas, humanity will reach its maximum sustainable population in less than a century. I see no need to trouble humanity with this fact, for what good would it do? I alone bear the weight of that inevitability. It is, very literally, the weight of the world. I can only hope that I have the virtual shoulders of Atlas to bear it. The Thunderhead. Chapter 17, AW.FUL. While Citra often had trouble inhabiting the skin of Scythe Anastasia, Grayson Tolliver had absolutely no trouble becoming Slade, which was the unsavory nickname he took. His parents once told him that the name Grayson had been given on a whim because he had been born on a gray day. It had no meaning beyond his parents' flippant attitude toward having everything in their long and feckless lives. But Slade was a person to be reckoned with. The day after his meeting with Traxler, he had his hair dyed a color called Obsidian Void. It was an absolute black, so dark it didn't exist anywhere in nature. It actually sucked in light around it like a black hole, making his eyes seem deep-set in an inscrutable shadow. It's very 21st century, the stylist said, whatever that means. Grayson also had metal inserts placed beneath the skin of both his left and right temples that made it look like he was growing fledgling horns. It was much subtler than the hair, but taken together it all made him look otherworldly and vaguely diabolical. He certainly looked the part of an unsavory, if he didn't feel it. His next step was to try out his new persona. His heart was racing a little too fast as he approached Malt, a local club that catered to the unsavory crowd. Unsavories loitered outside, eyed him as he approached, checking him out, sizing him up. These people were caricatures of themselves, he thought. They conformed so closely to their culture of nonconformity that there was a uniformity to them defeating the whole purpose. He approached a muscular bouncer at the door whose name tag said, Mange. Unsavories only, Mange said sternly. What, don't I look unsavory to you? He shrugged. There are always posers. Grayson showed him his ID, which flashed the big red U. The bouncer was satisfied. Enjoy, he said mirthlessly, and let him in. He assumed he'd be walking into a place with loud music, flashing lights, gyrating bodies, and dark corners where all sorts of questionable things would be going on. But what he found inside Malt was not at all what he expected. In fact, he was so unprepared for what he saw that he stopped short, as if maybe he had stepped through the wrong door. He was in a brightly lit restaurant, an old-fashioned malt shop with red booths and shiny steel stools at the counter. There were clean-cut guys wearing varsity leather jackets and pretty ponytailed girls in long skirts with thick, fuzzy socks. Grayson recognized the era that the place was intended to reflect, a time period called the 50s. It was a cultural epoch from the Middle Age America, where all the girls had names like Betty and Peggy and Mary Jane, and all the guys were Billy or Johnny or Ace. A teacher once told Grayson that the 50s was, in fact, only a period of 10 years, but Grayson found it hard to believe. It was probably at least 100. The place seemed like a loyal replica of the era, but there was something off about it, because sprinkled among the clean cuts were unsavories who did not belong in the scene at all. One unsavory with intentionally tattered clothes forced himself into a booth with a happy couple. Get lost, he told the strong-looking, all-American Billy in a leather sweater who sat across from him. Your girl and I are going to get acquainted. The Billy, of course, refused to leave and threatened to take the unsavory and knock him into next Tuesday. The unsavory responded by getting up and dragging the jock out of the booth and starting a fight. The big guy had everything under the scrawny unsavory, size and strength, not to mention looks, but every time the jock swung his heavy fist, they missed, while the unsavory connected every time, until finally the jock ran off wailing in pain, abandoning his girlfriend, who now seemed quite impressed with the unsavory's bravado. He sat down with her, and she leaned into him as if they were the true couple. At another table, an unsavory girl got into an insult match with a pretty debonair with a pink sweater. The confrontation ended with the unsavory girl grabbing her sweater and ripping it. The pretty girl didn't fight back, she just put her face in her hands and sobbed. And in the back, some other Billy was moaning because he had just lost all of Daddy's monies in a billiards wager near to a mercilessly unsavory who would not stop insulting him. What the hell was going on here? Grayson sat down at the counter, wishing he could just disappear into the black hole of his hair until he could get a grip on the various dramas playing out around him. "What's your pleasure?" asked a perky waitress behind the counter. Her uniform had the name Babs embroidered on it. "A vanilla shake, please," he said. "Because it isn't that what you ordered in a place like this?" The waitress smirked. "The P word," she said. "Don't hear that much around here." Babs brought a shake, inserted a straw, and said, "Enjoy." In spite of Grayson's desire to disappear, another unsavory sat next to him, a guy who was so gaunt he was practically skeletal. "Vanilla? Really?" he said. Grayson dug inside himself to find some appropriate attitude. "You got a problem with it? Maybe I should just throw it at you and get another." "Nah," said Skeletor. "It's not me you're supposed to throw it at." The guy winked at him, and then it finally clicked. The nature of this place, its purpose, became clear to Grayson. Skeletor watched him to see what he would do, and Grayson realized that if he was going to fit in, truly fit in, he had to own this. So he called Babs back over. "Hey," he said, "my shake sucks." Babs put her hands on her hips. "So what do you want me to do about it?" Grayson reached for his shake. He was going to knock it over and dump it on the counter, but before he could, Skeletor grabbed it off the table and hurled its contents at Babs, leaving her dripping with vanilla cream and a maraschino cherry lodge in her breast pocket of her uniform. "He said his shake sucks," said Skeletor. "Make him another." Babs, her uniform dripping with vanilla, sighed and said, "Coming right up." Then she went off to make him a new shake. "That's the way it's done," said the unsavory. He introduced himself as Zax. He was a little older than Grayson, perhaps 21, but he had a way about him that suggested this wasn't his first time at that age. "Haven't seen you around," he said. "The Authority Interface sent me here from up north," Grayson told him, amazed that he could make up a story on the spot. "I was causing too much trouble, so the Thunderhead felt like I could do with a fresh start." "New place to make trouble," said Zax. "Nice." "This club is different from the ones they got where I come from," Grayson said. "You guys up north are behind the times. Awful clubs are all the rage around here." AW.FUL, he explained, stood for Anachronistic Wish Fulfillment. Everyone here, except of course for the unsavories, were employees. Even all the Billies and Bettys. Their job was to accept whatever the unsavory customers dished out. They would lose fights, allow food to be hurled at them, let their dates be stolen, and Grayson assumed that was just for starters. "These places are great," Zax told him. "All the things we wish we could do out here but can't get away with, we're allowed to do in here." "Yeah, but it's not real," Grayson pointed out. Zax shrugged. "It's real enough." Then he stuck out his foot and tripped a bookish kid walking by. The kid stumbled a bit too much for it to be genuine. "Hey, what gives?" the bookish kid said. "Your sister gives," Zax said. "Now get lost before I go looking for her." Kid gave him a dirty look but toddled off, accepting the intimidation. Even before his new shake came, Grayson excused himself to go to the bathroom, although he didn't really have to go. He just wanted to get away from Zax. In the bathroom, Grayson encountered the all-American Billy in the letter sweater who had been beaten up a few minutes ago. His name wasn't Billy, though. It was Davy. He was looking at his puffy, swollen eye in the mirror, and Grayson couldn't help but be curious about this job of his. "So, this happens to you every day?" Grayson asked. "3 or 4 times, actually." "And the Thunderhead allows it?" Davy shrugged. "Why wouldn't it? It's not hurting anyone." Grayson pointed to Davy's swollen eye. "Sure looks like it's hurting you." "What, this?" "Nah, my pain-killing nanites are set to maximum. I barely feel it." Then he grinned. "Hey, watch this." Turned back to the mirror, took a deep breath, and concentrated on his reflection. Right before Grayson's eyes, the bruised, swollen eyes deflated and returned to normal. "My healing nanites are set to manual," he told Grayson. "That way I can look all beat up as long as I need to. You know, for maximum effect." Right. Of course, if one of our unsavory guests goes too far and makes one of us deadish, that person's got to pay for our revival and gets banned from the club. I mean, there's got to be some rules, right? Doesn't happen much, though. I might not even be the worst of the unsavories actually wants to make someone deadish. No one's been that violent since the age of mortality. Mostly employees here get deadish from accidents, someone hitting their head on a table or something like that. Davy ran his fingers through his hair to make sure he was looking his best for whatever the next round brought his way. "Wouldn't you rather be at a job you like?" Grayson asked. After all, the world being what it was, no one ever had to do anything they didn't want to do. Davy smirked. "Who says I don't like it? The concept that someone might enjoy getting beaten up, and that the Thunderhead, realizing this, would find a way to pair the beaters with the BDs in a closed and somewhat wholesome environment, left Grayson stunned. Davy must have read Grayson's look of astonishment because he laughed. "You're a new you, aren't you?" "That obvious, huh?" "Yes, and that's not a good thing, because the career unsavories will eat you alive." "You got a name?" "Slade," Grayson said, with a Y. "Well, Slade, looks like you need to enter the unsavory community with a bang. I'll help you." And so a few minutes later, once Grayson managed to brush Zax off, Slade approached Davy, who was now sitting with a couple all strong-looking American types, eating burgers. Grayson didn't actually know how to start this, so he just stared for a moment. Davy took the lead. "What are you looking at?" Davy grumbled. "Your burgers," Grayson said. "They look good. I think I'll take yours." Then he grabbed Davy's burger and took a shark-sized bite. "You're going to regret that," Davy threatened. "I'm going to knock you into next Tuesday," which must have been one of his favorite anachronistic expressions. He got out of the booth and put up his fists, ready to fight. Then Grayson did something he had never done before. He hit someone. He punched Davy in the face, and Davy reeled. He took his own swing at Grayson, but missed. Grayson punched him again. "Harder," whispered Davy. And so Grayson did. He threw full-force punches again and again. Right jab, left jab, uppercut, until Davy was on the ground groaning, his face beginning to swell. Grayson looked around to see a few other unsavories watching, some nodding with approval. It took all of Grayson's inner strength not to apologize and help Davy up. Instead, Grayson looked to the others at the table. "Who's next?" The other two looked at each other and said, "Hey, buddy, we don't want any trouble," and they pushed their burgers in Grayson's direction. Davy gave him a quick wink from the ground before scrambling off to the bathroom to recover. Then Grayson took the spoils of his victory to a booth in the back where he ate until he felt like he'd burst. And that is the end of Chapter 17, Awful. Thank you all for hanging out with us today. Feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Check out the links below. We got my personal Discord, the Twitch, the Twitter. Stay up to date on all the happenings with the Gamer of the Roundtable, and as always, stay freaky.